Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular board meeting of the Rainbow District School Board for January 23rd, 2024. I'd like to welcome everybody who's in the audience with us tonight. Also remind everybody that we're being live streamed, and hello to everybody who's joined us in cyberspace today. So we'll begin tonight with our land acknowledgement. The Rainbow District School Board would like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional and ancestral territory of the Atishimeksheng, including the Atishimeksheng and the Ashanomic and the Wanapate First Nations. We would like to acknowledge that we are situated within the Robinson-Huron Treaty of 1850, and we want to recognize the inherent rights of the Anishinaabe that have maintained these lands from time immemorial. So we'll start this evening with a roll call. Director Bourget.
Trustee Dabowski. Trustee Farrell.
Present.
Trustee Gibson.
Present.
Trustee Cosmerly.
Present.
Trustee McCauley. Present. Trustee Dewar.
Present.
Trustee Hunda.
Present.
Trustee Corbier-Addison. I do see Trustee Corbier-Addison online. I'll come back. Oh, so she's present. Student Trustee Green.
Present.
And Student Trustee Jacko Sywink.
Thank you, Director. We'll move on to agenda item number A, or approval of the agenda, and we have a motion that the agenda of the regular board meeting of January 23rd, 2024 be approved. Could I have a mover, please? That's moved by Trustee McCauley and seconded by Trustee Cosmerly. Any additions, subtractions? Okay, we'll move to the vote.
Trustee Clement.
In favor.
Trustee Corbier-Addison. Trustee Dewar.
In favor.
Trustee Farrell.
In favor.
Trustee Gibson.
In favor.
Trustee Hunda.
In favor.
Trustee Cosmerly.
In favor.
Trustee McCauley.
In favor.
Student Trustee Green.
In favor.
Motion's carried.
Thank you, Director. Letter C, preliminary declaration of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, we'll move to section C on our agenda, presentations. Director Bourget.
Thank you, Chair Farrell. We do have a presentation tonight, and I want to thank all of our system principals who will be presenting and our superintendents who have worked on this presentation. I do not know if our superintendents would like to say anything prior to them starting, but I will thank them for all of their hard work, because I know that they've worked very diligently to give you a sense of pulling together the whole transition process. So I see Kathy, Superintendent Wachnick would like to say a few words, so I'll turn it over to her and then the presentation will begin.
Good evening. Is this on? Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to share an overview of the work that we do to support the intermediate years of grades 7 and 8 and the successful transition to secondary school. Joining us are Principal of Student Success, Melanie Bertrand, Principal of Program, Dan Cozier, Principal of Special Education, Danielle Williamson, Principal of Indigenous Education, Nicole Nicholas, and Mental Health Lead, Sarah Clark. We will begin with Principal Bertrand, who will share with us the basis of this presentation, the 4 pillars of student success.
Good evening, everyone. So to begin, and one of my favorite things to talk about, one of the most important roles in student success is planning for a successful transition from grade 8 to grade 9. Grade 9 is a foundational year, and as such, school student success teams take care to ensure that all 4 of the student success pillars, literacy, numeracy, programs and pathways, and community culture and caring guide this work. This presentation will highlight the transition process and focus on how staff gather information to share with receiving schools. Staff in both panels work in a supportive and collaborative way. The work is intentional, purposeful, and student-centered. And this results in thoughtful decision-making about individual timetables and student supports. It also includes suggested co-curricular opportunities like music, sports, and clubs that are based on the interests of our students. And preparing for grade 9 starts with presentations and conversations very early in the school year. Students entering grade 9 and their parents and guardians are invited to an annual information evening at the Cambrian College Student Center. We had a record number of families come to our Next Stop Grade 9 event, which was held last November. There was standing room only for the second year in a row, which means families also recognize the importance of preparing for secondary school. And this presentation includes information about high school programming, timetables, school supports, and tips for success. Families also have the opportunity to speak to our program staff and community partners about topics that range from guidance services to French immersion programming. And they get to meet our school administrators and ask questions that they may have. And going hand in hand with the Next Stop Grade 9 event is a guide on finding your way from grade 8 to grade 9. Which is distributed to students and parents and their guardians at the information session. The guide is available online at our rainbowschools.ca site, and a hard copy can always be requested by emailing info@rainbowschools.ca. Next Stop Grade 9 marks the launch of secondary school information nights. These are exciting evenings. Families receive a full list of schools, dates, and times for open houses so they can plan to visit schools. Next Stop Grade 9 is not a destination, it's the continuation of our students' journey together. As you can see on the slide, Chelmsford Valley District Composite School and Lockerbie Composite School hosted information nights last week. Espanola High School, Manitoulin Secondary School, and LaSalle Secondary will open their doors to incoming students later in February. Information nights are lively and fun, and students and their parents and guardians visit the school, meet the staff, and discover the many opportunities that await them. This creates a connection between teachers, coaches, support staff, and their future students. It also engages parents and guardians. Parent involvement, as we know, improves student achievement. The transition process is multifaceted, and as mentioned previously, it's a journey that we take together. In addition to information sessions, there are activities for grade 8 students to get to know their secondary school. We also share data in transition forms, have structured meetings between elementary school and secondary school staff to ensure that the receiving school has as much information as possible about the incoming student. The primary goal is to support a successful start to high school. IPRC meetings are also held for students who have a formal identification. High school student success teachers, the guidance department, program leaders, and the administration create multiple opportunities for grade 8 students. Secondary staff visit grade 8 classrooms to discuss programming and course selections with grade 8 classes. And grade 8 classes are invited to spend a day with high school students to experience life of a grade 9. Schools facilitate individual shadow days, meaning an incoming student would spend the day with the high school ambassador, attending classes and meeting members of the school community. And Remembrance Day ceremonies, school feasts, robotics competitions, trades days, basketball and volleyball tournaments, school plays and concerts are just some examples of the many ways that we welcome grade 8 students into the high school environment all through the year, where faces and spaces become familiar, and when we begin to nurture a sense of belonging, anticipation, and excitement. Creating a smooth transition requires a high degree of collaboration and communication between elementary and secondary schools, and certainly speaks to the commitment that we all have to our students. I commend staff for recognizing the importance of working together to make the path forward as seamless as possible. It's hard work. After grade 8 students have selected their courses for grade 9, transition meetings are scheduled. A transition meeting involves the sending and receiving schools administration, student success teachers, and other student success team members, depending on the context. For instance, a grad coach may also be present. You'll learn a little bit more about that role later on. At this meeting, this transition meeting, the data collected on the transition forum is reviewed. This data includes, among other things, report card marks, benchmark assessment system measurements, and knowledge check assessments, and attendance. The forum also has space for recording information about social and emotional needs, interests and areas of strength, support services that have been effective, and timetable recommendations. So a lot of information is shared at these meetings. Further, any recommended changes to a course or timetable are discussed with parents and guardians in advance of a final timetable generation.
When we are completing transition forms for students and meeting to discuss their transition to high school, there is a lot of assessment data that we look at as a team. The assessment data from elementary school helps guide our conversations about which courses, supports, and programs may be needed for each student. We look at EQAO data from grade 3 and 6 in reading, writing, and math. Lexia data is reviewed for students that have used the program as an intervention. Lexia is a personalized adaptive learning program that develops foundational reading and advanced literacy skills for students. With Lexia, students learn and practice skills at their own pace. Ongoing data provides educators with detailed insight into their students' skills, and specialized instructional resources allow educators to target instruction. We also look at report cards for our students to get a better understanding of their achievement most recently, but also over time. Report cards hold valuable information about academic achievement of students as well as their learning skills. KnowledgeHook is an online platform that is used to collect mathematics assessment information about student achievement. The benchmark assessment system allows teachers to accurately and reliably identify each student's instructional and independent reading levels and document their progress through one-on-one assessments. Principal Kozier will go into greater detail about KnowledgeHook and the benchmark assessment system in a moment. We also look at other assessments that students may have had over the years. For example, students may have had a psychoeducational, speech and language, or functional behavioral assessment. These assessments give us a lot of information that help us to understand the learning profile of each of our students. There is a lot of data that schools have about each of their students. What I have shared with you on this slide are examples of the data that we collect, but this list is by no means exhaustive. It should also be noted that when we have students who join Rainbow from other school boards, including First Nations schools, we work closely with them to learn as much as we can about our incoming students. I will now turn it over to Principal Kozier to tell us more about KnowledgeHook and the benchmark assessment system.
Thank you, Principal Williamson. So the benchmark assessment system is used to assess students' reading proficiency. It measures a student's ability to decode text, read fluently, and comprehend what has been read. Decoding is a student's ability to read the text on the page. Fluency speaks to how smoothly and easily a student reads, and comprehension is how well the student understands what they've read. All of these components come together to allow students to be effective, efficient, and proficient readers. Because this assessment is used in both the elementary and secondary panels, it creates a common and consistent language in which to discuss student needs and student achievement. Benchmark is one assessment amongst many other pieces of information that are used to inform decisions for programming, placement, and supports for students in the intermediate grades and as they move into secondary school. And as was already shared, it is part of the transition form that goes between the elementary and secondary schools as part of the transition process. Knowledge Hook is a computer-based assessment system that allows teachers to quickly and efficiently collect information about student achievement in mathematics. It's available to all teachers and has built-in assessments and questions, along with corresponding support materials and information for teachers about how best to support their students based on the information gathered. It also has the option to build custom assessments related to specific skills or areas. Richard Duffy and Heather Teismeyer have developed a broad diagnostic for Rainbow District School Board using the Knowledge Hook platform. This looks at 6 broad areas of math, which are foundational for student success. These are whole number operations, working with integers, working with fractions, patterning and linear relations, solving equations, and proportional reasoning. The results of this diagnostic support programming in our intermediate classrooms by providing a way to quickly assess students' strengths and needs in order to inform further assessment and determine the focus for instruction. Additionally, this information is key during the transition process as it helps to determine appropriate supports and program selections for students moving from grade 8 to grade 9 and informs conversations about student math achievement. I'll now turn it over to Principal Bertrand.
On this slide, you will see the professional learning opportunities provided to staff who support the transition from grade 8 to grade 9. Our consultants and coordinators are working in classrooms with teachers to support the continuum of learning that occurs between grades 8 and 9, and they support conversations around course selections, pathways, and programming. Both elementary and secondary student success teachers attend meetings to discuss effective student success practices, and we'll come together right in this room to get, again next month to plan for our annual spring transition meetings.
The professional learning for Indigenous support workers occurred during the November PA Day and again at professional learning session that happened in December with a specific focus on the roles and responsibilities of Indigenous support workers and transition planning and implementation. Indigenous support workers play a pivotal role in engaging and supporting the relationship between the student, family, community, and the teacher in school. Transition planning and implementation strategies were the focus in December as we work to prepare intentional transition activities for incoming students, some of whom are coming from federal schools. On November 10th, the Professional Activity Day, we were able to bring together grade 7 and 8 teachers. I'm like, uh-oh, out of my area. We were able to bring together grade 7 and 8 teachers. They participated in focused learning related specifically to supporting their work in preparing intermediate students for grade 9.
For some insight into the professional learning provided to the grade 7 and 8 teachers on that day, November 10th, you can see on this slide that the focus aligns with our board priorities. Our team of consultants and coordinators made presentations, delivered presentations on the following topics: structure and best practice for reading instruction, French immersion and the new language curriculum, numeracy, thinking within spirals, and daily writing in their intermediate classroom. A meeting for intermediate student success teachers was also held, ensuring alignment between best practices and board priorities. In addition, attendance counselors share their best practices with each other, led by me.
Also on November 10th, the mental health team, along with other key board staff, had the opportunity to provide professional learning to grade 7 and 8 educators on the Ministry of Education mandated mental health modules. These modules were developed by School Mental Health Ontario and are based on the existing mental health literacy expectations within Strand D of the grade 7 and 8 health and physical education curriculum. As per PPM 169, they will be delivered starting this school year. Principal Kozer will now share information about our grade 8 students.
Thank you. As we look at the current cohort of grade 8 students in Rainbow Schools, we know that we currently have about 930 grade 8 students. This data is drawn from our student information system and helps us to prepare for the needs of current students, knowing that we will likely see an increase as students move into our geographic area or come from coterminous boards. Knowing as much as possible about the incoming grade 9 students is extremely valuable as we consider the allocation of resources and how best to help students as they progress from their elementary to secondary school education. The processes and tools in place around the move from elementary to secondary school are ultimately focused on students. As noted on the previous slide, while most will seamlessly transition from elementary to secondary with the general processes that exist, some students require additional support. As a system, we strive to be responsive, caring, and inclusive in our practices to make sure that every student moving from grade 8 to 9 has the best experience possible and begins their high school education excited and ready. In order to demonstrate what this might look like in a real-world context, we've developed 3 student profiles that are representative of some of the students we might be working with this year. It's important to note that these are fictionalized examples. None of these pertain to real students. However, they represent different types of student profiles as a way to help us illustrate the many ways we support students based on their specific strengths and needs. As we review the profiles, we'll talk a little bit about these fictional students and how their needs inform our planning. We will also look at what processes are in place that are directly connected to what that student might need. Finally, for each student, we'll review a mock timetable to emphasize how carefully our secondary schools work to provide students with the best experience and support possible. The first student we'll meet today is Felix. Over the past year, we've seen many newcomers like Felix enter Rainbow Schools. Felix is an English language learner whose first language is Spanish. He is highly motivated and was very successful throughout his schooling in his home country. He arrived in Canada this year, coming directly to Sudbury as a refugee. Felix studied Spanish, French, and English in his home country. He speaks Spanish fluently and can speak both French and English well enough to manage in social contexts. Felix is very interested in dramatic arts and has hopes of performing in theater productions and plays. He's extremely excited about entering secondary school and has had many conversations with his teacher about his plans for next year. Once again, I'll emphasize that Felix is a fictional character. As you're certainly aware, the population in our region is increasingly diverse, a reality that we see reflected in our schools. Understanding how to support newcomers and connect with their families is key for ensuring a good school experience, particularly when planning for secondary school. There's been a lot of change in the past little while for Felix. He's experienced some trauma in the past year. He moved to Canada from his home country and suffered the loss of a parent prior to relocating. While he's very resilient and has some family support, this has been difficult for him at times, and he has sometimes struggled with feelings of grief and loss while also trying to acclimate to a new culture and environment. Additionally, while Felix speaks English and French passably, he has had only minimal instruction in reading and writing in languages other than Spanish, meaning that there is a gap between his spoken English and his ability to express himself in writing or read fluently and with comprehension. Finally, as someone who is new to Canada, Felix and his family are not familiar with many of the processes and protocols they'll encounter in the Canadian school system. Navigating these can be challenging, so it's important to ensure that Felix and his family have information clearly presented as they make decisions about his secondary choices. Over the next number of slides, we'll review some of the specific ways that Felix will be supported to ensure his entry into high school is a positive experience.
Speaking more generally, as it relates to grade 8 students who are receiving support from the mental health team, an individualized plan that addresses their mental health needs is developed, and if mental health support in grade 9 is indicated, the student is connected to the social worker in the secondary school. For Felix, he has been seeing the school social worker at his elementary school, and they have co-developed a coping plan, which has been shared with his family and his educators. It includes a grounding technique that he has practiced and finds helpful. Felix has been taught to systematically use his 5 senses in situations to ground himself to the present moment. Both Felix and his educators are aware of situations that may remind him of past difficult experiences in his country of origin. He has an identified caring adult in the school who provides a sense of safety during these moments. Felix will meet with his current social worker and the social worker in his secondary school at the end of June to discuss mental health supports in the fall. The social worker has also collaborated with the settlement worker, which Principal Bertram will tell us more about in just a moment.
We are very fortunate to have what we call a settlement worker in schools, provided by the Settlement Services Division of the local YMCA and funded by Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada. The settlement worker supports students, like Felix, who are new to Canada, and by extension, Sudbury. They help families navigate school life in Ontario, assist with community integration and cultural connections, and will also provide classroom and school presentations in our schools to develop intercultural awareness. As a student who is a refugee, Felix and his family would be connected to the settlement worker. A referral form would be completed by a school, and the settlement worker may support the registration process. As we heard, that understanding very clearly the options available to Felix is important here. Would be a good idea to have them present. And they would visit Felix at school throughout that transition period to support a successful start to grade 9.
Rainbow employs a number of English language teachers, also known as ELTs, at both the elementary and secondary levels. These teachers work directly with students to support their acquisition of English language skills necessary for school success, and they also provide consultation and support to classroom teachers who are working with English language learners. When looking at Felix, we can see that the ELT supports in a number of different ways. Felix conferences with the English language teacher twice per week for 30 minutes. This includes pre-learning key vocabulary for his courses, an opportunity to check in on major assignments and projects, and a review of his accommodations. This current support, which is in place for his grade 8 year, will be continued next year as he enters grade 9. This continuity of service and ongoing support will help him master the vocabulary and skills necessary for success in the more specialized classes he'll take in secondary school. Currently, the English language teacher communicates with Felix's teachers regularly for updates on his progress, specific needs related to his courses, and to update his support plan. The ELT is an integral part of the team that will communicate with Felix and his family and help them to plan for his entry to secondary. The ELT communicates with Felix's parents through email, at their request, as this makes translation easier for them, about Felix's progress and activities that he can undertake at home to improve his English language skills. As part of the transition process, the elementary ELT will coordinate with the secondary school and secondary ELT to ensure a soft handoff and continuity of service. This means that the elementary ELT will conference with their secondary counterpart, sharing information, best practices, and documentation about Felix's specific needs and the supports currently in place. Given Felix's proficiency with spoken language, the focus in secondary will be on academic writing and the use of more specialized vocabulary that may be required in certain courses like science or mathematics.
Each of our secondary schools has a student success teacher on staff. As part of their responsibilities, they help plan transition activities, facilitate and participate in spring transition meetings, and they monitor, as part of a larger student success team in the school, the progress of students. Knowing that the first few weeks of grade 9 are critical for establishing a welcoming environment, connections, and trust, the student success team pays close attention to grade 9 students. Felix will be followed by the student success teacher, who will check in with his classroom teachers, the assigned English language classroom teacher that Mr. Cozier just described, and the caring adult that will support Felix with his coping plan as described by Sarah. Any changes to attendance or achievement would be a sign that another level of support is required.
Here we can see Felix's timetable. In consultation with Felix, his family, and the educational team surrounding them, the schedule has been constructed carefully to match his particular learning profile to the courses and timing that will allow the greatest opportunity for success. The first semester includes his English course, which will allow him to work on his academic language skills in a classroom setting, supplemented by support from the English language teacher. As someone who is passionate about the arts and particularly interested in drama, it was decided that including a drama class during first semester would give Felix a class where he would be highly engaged and could use his proficiency with spoken language to excel. In second semester, the English language teacher will work with Felix to support his work in mathematics, particularly around the specialized vocabulary required. By dividing English and geography from mathematics and science between first and second semester, the plan is to space out subjects that require more technical vocabulary to allow Felix time to master the language required to be successful. Having studied French before coming to Canada, Felix is well prepared to complete a credit in the language as part of his studies. His fluency and proficiency with spoken language should allow him to be very successful. One last consideration is how Felix is being connected with extracurriculars. As you can see on the right-hand side of the slide, Felix is involved in a number of activities throughout the year, including drama club, student council, jazz band, and working with a student mentor. As someone who is as passionate about drama as Felix, including him in the drama club is an obvious choice. The secondary school will be careful to ensure that Felix received clear communication about the club and was encouraged to attend. Leveraging his oral language proficiency and positive outlook, Felix also participates in student council. This helps him to build his peer base and also gives him additional opportunities to strengthen his English skills. Finally, by pairing Felix with a senior peer mentor who is also Spanish speaking, the secondary school adds to his toolbox of supports. This enhances his ability to navigate the school system and processes, and once again builds his peer group to ensure he feels connected, comfortable, and supported during his entry to grade 9 and throughout the school year.
Meet Simon. Simon is an Indigenous student who's entering grade 9 from a federal school. He's strongly connected to his First Nation community. He is passionate about continuing to learn Anishinaabemowin, as his parents are also actively involved in the community and in learning language and culture. Even though he is just entering grade 9, he was able to participate in a summer Reach Ahead course and received a Careers in Civics grade 10 credit. The structure of the summer program allowed him to take the course with other students from his community school and other Indigenous communities. It also allowed the course to be situated in a community and Indigenous context while maintaining Ontario curriculum expectations. This provided Simon with the opportunity to experience success in obtaining a secondary school credit with his peers. This further positions Simon in a place of success by positioning him from a place that he already has the credit, which will work to encourage and empower him. Simon is a student who really enjoys technology and participates in school coding and robotics clubs. He has hopes of contributing to the robotics club, winning in different competitions, and making it to the provincial competitions. Simon is excited about possibly joining the band as he loves to play guitar in his spare time. Simon presents as a capable and talented student, but requires increased engagement in some subject areas that are non-technology related. He is a little nervous as he is attending a new school, and the school is outside of his home community. The new school is much larger than what he's used to, and there will be many new people that he does not know. Simon will be regularly supported by the Indigenous support worker at his new school. The Indigenous support worker will already be familiar with Simon, as the support worker would have already engaged with him through transition activities. The support worker would also have communicated with his parents and guardians prior to Simon actually arriving at his new school. The worker would also communicate regularly with Simon's teachers to ensure he's progressing in his courses. The Indigenous support worker will work collaboratively with Student Success Team to ensure his coursework is up to date and to develop a support plan if necessary. The support worker will work with Simon to navigate the exploration of extracurricular activities and will support his participation in the Secondary Robotics Club. The continued engagement with extracurricular activities in school will help to encourage ongoing attendance. Recognizing some unique challenges and context related to big changes for Simon, he will receive some peer support from a senior level student with his home community. The peer support will provide Simon with information, encouragement, time, and attention. The relationship between the student and Indigenous support worker is developed and shaped long before the student arrives at the new school. Through partnerships, collaboration, and effective planning, the support worker will engage First Nation community staff, students, and families long before Simon steps foot in his new school. The ISWs plan and implement 3 transition activities for Indigenous students that are transitioning to a new school, including a particular focus on First Nation community schools. The first transition day is building the community. The second transition day focus is extracurricular activities and course review. The third day focus is school and community supports. The Indigenous support worker builds a positive and supportive relationship with Simon and promotes positive relations between school and home. The Indigenous support worker connects with First Nation community schools to identify strategies and best practices to support Simon in the fall. Simon connects with the support worker in a dedicated, culturally responsive space that is unique to the context of the area within which it is situated. The space is welcoming, inclusive, and is a safe space for Indigenous students. They work with the school staff and administration to coordinate access to robotics and the coding club, after-school supports, and academic supports as required. The ISW works to build and maintain relationships with students through a variety of activities, including cooking, connecting through hot lunches, cultural learning opportunities, coordinating with external supports as required. The grad coach is also a key member of the student success team and is the strongest advocate for First Nation and Indigenous students in the school. The grad coach collects and analyzes data and works to identify systemic and other barriers related to engagement, well-being, and learning. The grad coach uses data to identify students within a certain cohort that may be the most at risk of not graduating and works closely with the student success team to map out a plan to remove barriers. In this specific example, the grad coach facilitates access to Reach Ahead program and collaborates with the family, community school to ensure Simon is successful in the program. The grad coach would continue to link Simon with extracurricular activities, including robotics and music, and would continue to encourage the exploration of other possible activities. The grad coach would then work closely with the success team to build the student timetable and would engage in ongoing data collection to track progress and ensure the existing supports are effective. The grad coach builds networks of support for Simon through connecting with key staff within the school. Here is Simon's timetable, which was created by carefully balancing the compulsory grade 9 credits with electives that reflect Simon's interests. Simon, his family, and his grade 8 teacher would have been involved in selecting courses, which would be reviewed at the spring transition meeting. In semester 1, Simon is studying grade 9 English, healthy active living, science, and a technological education course called Computer Technology and Skilled Trades. This is a course that was suggested by the receiving high school during course selections, as it is in line with his interest in robotics and technology. Based on his profile, this is sure to be one of the courses that he looks most forward to. In the second semester, Simon is studying a grade 9 math and native language in the morning. It should be noted the native language course is in place of French, and in this case, the language will be Ojibwe. During lunch, Simon may decide to play chess, build with a Lego club, focus on robotics, or make time for more than one of these activities depending on when they occur throughout the year. In the afternoon, Simon will be taking geography followed by music. The music was selected by Simon as he already plays guitar and is interested in learning how to play other instruments.
Let's meet Kennedy. Kennedy is a grade 8 student who loves sports and going to school. She has played on her elementary school's cross-country running and track and field teams. She also has an interest in the arts and is excited to take art classes in high school. Kennedy is looking forward to high school because of the courses she will be able to take in subject areas that she likes and does very well in. Kennedy is nervous about the academic subjects, specifically math and English. She is a student with a mild intellectual disability, and she has an individual education plan. She has received many interventions in her elementary school career and has made consistent gains. She does, however, still require accommodations and additional support in math, English, and the other core subject areas. Kennedy is also a type 1 diabetic, and her parents are worried about the transition to high school and school staff knowing how to monitor and help Kennedy manage her diabetes in a high school setting. As part of transition planning for Kennedy, it will include school staff understanding her mild intellectual disability, her type 1 diabetes, and her academic needs in core subject areas, specifically mathematics. To support Kennedy, a number of things will happen. A transition meeting will take place for Kennedy, as it would for any other student, and Kennedy will also have an identification, placement, and review committee meeting. She will bring with her the Chromebook that is assigned to her, and careful planning will go into the creation of her timetable to ensure it is supportive of her needs and engages her strengths and interests. As a part of her timetable, we're going to look closely at how we will support her in her math learning and be mindful of including resource periods to support her as well. Kennedy is also a student who would have a medical plan of care for her diabetes management. This plan would be reviewed and updated as needed for the transition to high school. Staff would also be trained in the management of her diabetes by a nurse if required. An identification, placement, and review committee meeting is a formal committee that meets and decides if a student should be identified as exceptional, and if so, the placement that will best meet the student's needs. An IPRC is composed of at least 3 people, one of whom must be a principal or supervisory officer of the board. An IPRC is held annually for exceptional students. When it comes to Kennedy and all students with exceptionalities in their grade 8 year, a spring IPRC will be held to ensure that appropriate planning is taking place before the start of grade 9. Other than grade 8, IPRCs are hosted by schools annually in the fall. An IPRC includes inviting the parent and guardian and the student, reviewing the relevant information about the student, describing the student's strengths and needs, If they are not already identified as an exceptional student, deciding whether or not the student should be identified as exceptional. If it is a new identification, identifying the area of students' exceptionality according to the categories and definitions of exceptionality provided by the Ministry of Education. Deciding on an appropriate placement for the student, providing reasons for that placement, and discussing proposals for special education programs and services. And reviewing the identification and placement at least once every school year for the student. In the Rainbow District School Board, we have medical plans of care for any student who has a prevalent medical condition. This includes anaphylaxis, asthma, epilepsy, and diabetes. Therefore, Kennedy will have a medical plan of care in place already. Our medical plans of care are comprehensive documents. Each looks a little different depending on the condition. You can see here an example of the first 2 pages of the plan of care document for a student with diabetes. The plan of care for a student with a prevalent medical condition will include student information, emergency contacts, the team in and outside of school that supports the student, what the condition is, how to manage it, as well as how to respond in an emergency. A resource period is a Learning Strategies credit. Learning Strategies is a credit that students can earn towards their Ontario Secondary School Diploma. It is a period where students work on learning skills such as organization, time management, and study skills. Students also use this course to get additional help from a teacher to review and consolidate the content in their other courses and complete assignments. Students can earn up to 4 Learning Strategies credits towards their Ontario Secondary School Diploma. The Bridge Math course gives students who have struggled with mastering foundational mathematics concepts additional time and opportunities for practice before taking grade 9 math. The course is offered during first semester so that students can take grade 9 math in semester 2. You'll see this reflected in her timetable. Kennedy's timetable for grade 9 has been carefully created to meet her individual strengths and needs. We know that she needs continued math intervention and support. For that reason, we will put her in a Bridge Math course. This will happen in semester 1 so that she can move into grade 9 math in semester 2. We also know that Kennedy is a student with a mild intellectual disability. As a result, she will require additional support throughout high school. In her grade 9 year, we will have a Learning Strategies course in each semester for her. This allows us to ensure she is supported in developing learning skills that will lead her to success in her other courses. This will also allow her to have the additional time and teacher support needed to help her successfully complete her other courses. You might also notice on her timetable that Kennedy will not take grade 9 French. This is because she is French exempt. We also made the decision to defer her grade 9 science course to her grade 10 year. This decision was made so that we could offer her a Learning Strategies course in each semester and also make sure she has her math and English courses in place. The placement of visual arts in semester 1 and healthy active living education in semester 2 was also very purposeful. We want to ensure that Kennedy has courses each semester that she feels passionate about and can demonstrate a high degree of success in. As mentioned with our other student profiles, carefully crafted timetables are key in setting up our students for success. You can also see under the student engagement section that we are already planning to help Kennedy make connections to the sports and clubs that she's interested in. A huge part of students' of success in grade 9 and throughout high school is active involvement in school life outside of the classroom. Once we have held our transition activities, collected student information on the student transition forms, had our transition meetings, IPRC meetings if applicable, and have created a timetable that set each student up for success, the school year comes to an end with graduation celebrations for our grade 8 students. However, there are still summer programming opportunities for our students available. Our intermediate summer learning program is designed to support students as they transition from elementary to secondary school. The program identifies specific gaps in critical concepts in literacy and numeracy and provides targeted remediation to close those gaps. Another of the program's goals is to really help students understand themselves better as learners. Our summer school Reach Ahead Indigenous program is an opportunity that is available to First Nation and Indigenous students in Sudbury, Manitoulin, and Espanola. Through this program, grade 8 students are able to earn a high school credit in the summer before they enter school in grade 9. Together with our First Nations communities, we plan course offerings that are within the context of what is best for students in their community. In prior years, courses such as Civics and Careers and Native Language have been offered to students. These courses are delivered in partnership with First Nations communities. This includes a teacher and support staff from Rainbow and the First Nations community in which the course is being offered. The successful completion of a high school course in the summer allows students to enter grade 9 with 1 of 30 credits already earned, allowing for foundational learning, providing a sense of accomplishment and achievement, and the opportunity to develop connections. The Autism Spectrum Disorder Summer Skills Program is for students from kindergarten through grade 8. This program targets the development of social and life skills for students with autism, and it is delivered by our Applied Behavior Analysis team with support from the Mental Health team. The Special Education Summer Transition Program is designed to support the transition to secondary school for students with special education needs. Schools create transition days for their students to meet new staff, tour the school, and become comfortable in their new environment before the busyness of the first few days of school. After our summer programming is complete, the next stop is grade 9.
And before we know it, schools are preparing for a special grade 9 welcome day, usually in late August before the start of the school year. Students receive their timetables, visit classrooms, meet their teachers, make friends, and navigate their way around their new school. This orientation is a great opportunity for staff to meet parents and guardians as well. This care and concern continues as we create a strong sense of belonging, which is part of the best practices that we implement for student success, achievement, and well-being. Teachers learn about the interests, strengths, and needs of their new students. As you have seen through the student profile examples, student supports are in place as required, and every effort is made to ensure that students are connected to the school and learning. Gathering student data, collaborating with colleagues, engaging in purposeful planning, facilitating opportunities for students, and creating a sense of belonging combine to form that solid foundation on which students can thrive. The steps taken to prepare students for secondary school create excitement for what's to come and set students up for success right from the start. As we have mentioned a few times, grade 9 is a foundational year. In addition to building academic skills that will support the next 3 years of learning, it is a time for being, belonging, and becoming. Being, belonging, and becoming speak to the importance of discovery of interests and aptitudes, the engagement that results from healthy connections to peers and caring adults, and the pathway planning that fosters our continued success. The planning, processes, and activities for a successful transition support our shared goal of graduation. Together, we prepare students to become lifelong learners achieving their full potential as confident, caring members of society. We hope that you enjoyed learning about how we support students on their journey from grade 8 to grade 9, and we would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, thank you, Principal Bertrand. I'm going to open the floor up for questions for any trustee that might have one. So I see Trustee Hunda online. Go ahead, Trustee Hunda.
Thank you, Chair Farrell. Through you to the whole team that just presented. Oh my goodness, what an exhausting but fabulous presentation. And it definitely demonstrated to us that it's an exhausting amount of work that goes in by a great deal of people to be able to put this all together for our students. I absolutely love these presentations because although we may be aware of the things that are going on, this is a wonderful demonstration of just, it gives us an opportunity to be so proud that you all work for us, so proud of the goals we have set in our missions and our statement and the good that we do as the Rainbow District School Board. I have just a couple of, maybe I wasn't really listening, but just a couple of quick questions. If I can, I don't know who wants to answer this, but my first question was about the transition meeting. That I think it was stated that it was taking place in the spring. Would that be before or after the courses are picked?
Hello, Trustee Hunda. It's Melanie. I will happily answer that. So the courses are being selected throughout the month of February and March, and the transition meetings happen after that. And that's when the timetables are reviewed. So sometimes, even though we have our consultants and coordinators supporting grade 8 course selections, we use a tool called My Blueprint for that. It's a very collaborative process, but sometimes there are things that come up in a transition meeting that may require a timetable change. So, for example, a student who, selected an arts course at, and meant to select something different like tech. They make mistakes sometimes, and sometimes the conversations that result from the information shared in a transition meeting take us in another direction, and we have something applied to the timetable like that bridge math course that you heard about Kennedy taking. But by and large, course selections are completed first, and then transition meetings occur. Timetables are never finalized, though, until students arrive at their high school. They get their official timetable when they arrive for that grade 9 welcome day.
Well, thank you. You very much answered my question, and even more so because I think then I understand that the courses are picked. However, I can see what a great importance this transition meeting is. If you notice that a student may have picked a course that is not going to be successful for them, but the changes can be made at that point. So I appreciate that. You also kind of touched on one of my other questions. If I could, Chair Farrell, quickly. Can someone explain to me about that bridging math? That bridging math course, because that is a new one for me.
Okay, I can. It's Melanie again. Sorry, you stuck with me. Yes, I can talk a little bit about that. So, bridge math has been developed and available in the last few years in Rainbow to support the successful completion of the D-Stream math. Okay, so knowing that we would like to keep our student opportunities available for future math courses and in various pathways, we really try to identify students who, through the diagnostic, like knowledge check that Principal Kosher talked about, that's one way. And of course, a year's worth of learning in grade 8 would result in a good recommendation from a classroom teacher. They'd have a conversation with our transition team, that group of educators that come together in the spring, and they might say, you know, this student needs a little more practice with these foundational mathematic concepts. We're concerned that that would be necessary first before we would go into that D-stream math. And so that conversation would be had, the D-stream math, and of course the family needs to be informed of this conversation and decision, and they would have to be on board. And if they agreed that would be in place in semester 1 of the grade 9 year, then that would lay that further foundation of mathematical skills for the successful completion of the single stream or D-stream math in semester 2. Not all of our students require that level of support, but it's available. And it allows students to make choices then about where they go from there in terms of mathematics.
No, that's wonderful. Again, I can't stress enough. I can remember being in, believe it or not, as old as I am, I can remember being in grade 8 and making the transition to high school. And I mean, it was just, okay, for me, I just crossed the road from McLeod to Lockerbie, but for others, it was a little more traumatic, but it was still a big building. It was scary. It was, nerve-wracking. And I just think it's wonderful for all our students, all the effort that goes into prior to the year before while they're in grade 8, and then again at the beginning of the school year, to make it not so frightening and a welcoming place. And again, I can't, on behalf of myself, I thank each and every one of you for all this work that you do to prepare these kids and set them on a pathway to success. I am truly, truly amazed and appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hunda. Any further questions? We have Trustee Green, followed by Trustee Cosmerly. Go ahead, Trustee Green.
I just wanted to thank all of you for this presentation. As a student, I came from Valley View Public School, and then I moved to Sudbury Secondary School, which is very far away. I went with 5 people from my home school, 3 of which I hadn't really ever spoken to. So it's very amazing to see that you guys are making curated support plans for specific students. This is just really awesome to see. One question I did have is that in the student profiles, are there any inclusions about people who may identify as trans or non-binary with regards to pronouns or their chosen name that may not be on any legal documentation?
That's a great question, Trustee Green. So in those transition meetings, that would certainly be a topic of conversation. So like the grade 8 teacher would have careful conversations with that in receiving principal and the student success teacher to make sure that we knew all the things about every student and everything they need, right? Including a pronoun change, which may be the decision that the student has made. And that information will have to be shared with all of the teachers moving from grade 8 to 9. So all of the teachers who would be teaching the student would be privy to that information. Absolutely. It's just as important as academic information. You're welcome.
Thank you, Trustee Green. Going on to Trustee Cosmerly, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair Farrow, to the group there. I want to echo what Trustee Hunda said. Excellent, excellent presentation. I have one question, and that had to do with the fact that we are getting a lot of students now from other countries where English is not the first language. How are we supporting them through the summer? Would that, or are we supporting them through the summer to gain more English skills so that they would be better prepared for grade 9? Would the intermediate summer learning program address that, or is there anything else that we do to support them through the summer?
Hello, Trustee Cosmerly. I'm looking at Principal Kosher here, who's going to come up and join me, but I can start. See how I did that? But I can start by talking about the fact that that partnership with the YMCA Settlement Services extends beyond the settlement worker and school support, and we work closely with them to advertise the programs they offer. They have a robust level of programming that we very keenly make available in terms of information to our newcomer families, such as conversation circles. They have summer camps, and in the past, not last year, but the year previous, we had a really excellent partnership with them, and I will let Mr. Kosier take over and describe that.
Hi there, it's Dan Kosier. So we did, not as Principal Bertrand said, not last summer, but the previous summer, we did have a specific English language learner focused summer program. But they do also have the opportunity, so newcomer students, English language learners, have the opportunity to participate in that intermediate program. And we have, for the past 2 years, provided English language support in the form of an English language teacher who's attached to that program. So students who participate in those programs get additional support or have access to additional support through a qualified English language teacher. So they would be in the same capacity that they are during the school year in terms of directly supporting students and also supporting teachers who are working with those students to incorporate best practices. So there are supports available for those students if they're participating in those summer learning programs.
Great. Thank you. Great.
Perfect. Any further questions? Okay, seeing none. So first of all, I just want to say Mel and Dan and Sarah and Danielle and Nicole, thank you very much on behalf of everybody at the Board of Trustees for all the great work that you're doing. Fantastic presentation. What really struck me was the level of collaboration that you have on this. And you know, in my previous life, I remember how difficult the transition was from grade 8 to grade 9, and role modeling to the rest of our staff that level of collaboration, I think is really important. And this is one of the most difficult transitions that our students are going to face. So on behalf of all of us here, I just want to say thank you so much for all the hard work you're doing. You guys are absolute rock stars, and we appreciate everything you do on a day-to-day basis. So thank you. Okay, we'll move forward on our agenda. We are moving to Section D, and that's report from closed meeting of the board. We have none tonight. So we move forward to Section E, which is old business. E1 is previous minutes. E1A, we have a motion that the minutes of the regular board meeting held on Thursday, December 5th, 2023 be approved. We'll need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Judy Hunda, and seconded by Trustee Dewar. Questions, omissions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote.
Trustee Clement,
In favor.
Trustee Corbier-Addison,
In favor.
Trustee Dewar,
In favor.
Trustee Farrow,
In favor.
Trustee Gibson,
In favor.
Trustee Hunda,
In favor.
Trustee Cosmerly,
In favor?
Trustee McCauley,
In favor.
and Student Trustee Green.
In favor.
Motion's carried.
Thank you, Director. Next motion is that the minutes of the special board meeting held on Monday, December 11th, 2003 be approved. We need a mover and a seconder for that motion also. Moved by Trustee Dewar, seconded by Trustee Cosmerly. Any questions, omissions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote.
Trustee Clement,
In favor.
Trustee Corbier-Addison, Trustee Dewar,
In favor.
Trustee Farrow,
In favor.
Trustee Gibson,
In favor.
Trustee Hunda,
In favor.
Trustee Cosmerly,
In favor?
Trustee McCauley,
In favor.
Student Trustee Green.
In favor.
And I'll just come back to Trustee Corbier-Addison just to see.
In favor.
Thank you. The motion is carried.
Thank you. Section E2 of the agenda, reports and recommendations from board committees. And we'll talk the Accessibility Planning Committee, and we'll turn it over to Superintendent of Business, Adam Gilbo.
Thank you, Chair Farrell. The Accessibility Planning Committee met on Friday, December 1st, 2023, and as part of our agenda, reviewed the multi-year accessibility plan that you will find in the package that's been provided to you. The plan is intended to cover the period of January 2023 to December 2027 and succeeds the plan that was previously established in 2017-2018. The plan outlines the objectives and commitments made by the Rainbow District School Board to identify, remove, and prevent barriers affecting accessibility. Some notable changes include adjusting the values and priorities listed on page 6 to reflect the board's current practices, updating facility information, including the wheelchair accessibility and lockdown tracking reports that can be found in the appendices of the document, the inclusion of capital construction work that is taking place to remove and or accommodate physical barriers. We're also pleased to include Shannon Ketchabaugh as part of the committee as the PIC representative. Please note that this multi-year accessibility plan can be found on the board website and is available to the public. The committee will continue to meet at least once annually and provide updates to the plan as required. I am happy to address any questions, and I believe Trustee Cosmerly might have something to add as well.
Trustee Cosmerly, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to add that the plan before us today is really not that different than the ones that we've approved for the period 2012 to 2017 and 2018 to 2022, other than the changes that Superintendent Guilbeault has mentioned. As a member of the committee, I recommend approval of this particular plan. Thank you.
Any questions for Superintendent Guilbeault or Trustee Cosmerly? Seeing none, we have a motion that the board approve the multi-year accessibility plan for 2023 to 2027 as recommended by the Accessibility Planning Committee. Trustee Cosmerly, would you like to move that? Moved by Trustee Cosmerly. Seconded by Trustee Clement. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, we will call for the vote.
Trustee Clement?
In favor.
Trustee Corbier-Addison?
In favor.
Trustee Dewar?
In favor.
Trustee Farrell?
In favor.
Trustee Gibson?
In favor.
Trustee Hunda?
In favor.
Trustee Cosmerly?
In favor.
Trustee McCauley?
In favor.
And Student Trustee Green.
In favor.
The motion is carried.
Thank you, Director. Moving to section E3, we have a motion. The motion reads that motion number 24-R18, that the Board of Trustees receive an electronic copy of the board presentation / slide deck made at board meetings be rescinded. We need a mover. I believe it's moved by Trustee Cosmerly. And a seconder, please. Seconded by Trustee McCauley. So I will entertain questions. So first of all, Trustee Cosmerly, would you like to speak to this motion?
I would, thank you. I am requesting that motion 24-R18 be rescinded for several reasons. First, the way that the motion was introduced at our November 21st board meeting contravened our governance bylaw 8.3.2, which describes how an individual trustee is to bring a new motion to the board table for consideration. This bylaw states, and I quote, "A trustee may give the chair written notification of a motion along with explanatory rationale regarding any matter with respect to which a trustee has a right to vote. The notification of a motion shall be distributed by the chair or designate to all trustees. Where possible, trustees are asked to provide the notification to the chair 2 days prior to the meeting. Notwithstanding the above, a trustee may bring a motion at a board meeting without prior notice, provided that a 2/3 majority of those present and eligible to vote waive the notice requirement. The process which I just described was not followed by the mover of the motion. Rather, her motion was presented from the floor without prior notice to the board. The Board of Trustees also failed to follow bylaw 8.3.2 in that we did not waive the requirements to allow the motion to be heard. Instead, we proceeded with debate and a vote on the motion. In hindsight, trustees should have called a point of order right away, as our rules had been breached. However, none of us did, and the opportunity to challenge the motion in this way is now lost. My second concern also has to do with how the motion was presented. Governance bylaw 8.2 states, and I quote, "A member shall read a motion and after it is seconded, speak to it. No motion or amendment shall be debated or put to a vote unless the same is in writing and seconded," unquote. There are certain exceptions to this rule, but this is not one of them. As you will recall from our November 21st meeting, there was a seconder to the verbal motion. The chair asked the mover of the motion to jot down on a notepad the wording of her motion after it was seconded. However, she did not do this. Therefore, the chair tried to write the motion. However, wording of the motion continued to evolve verbally. The chair ended up asking the board's communications officer, who was in the audience, to share her wording of the motion, a highly irregular action. Trustees then voted on what the chair read from what the communications officer presented to him. Trustees only saw the motion in writing when we received the minutes of the board meeting on November 29th. Trustees should not have taken any action on the motion until the mover had presented it to the chair in writing, not only because this is a requirement under our bylaws, but by not seeing the motion in writing, trustees may not have had a common understanding of what they were voting on. And you can see this in the archived live stream of the meeting. My final concern has to do with the unexpectedness of the motion. Trustees were not alerted beforehand that the motion would be presented for our consideration. As you will recall, we had already been in meetings for an hour and a half when this motion was introduced. We had elected a new chair at our earlier organizational meeting and were midway through our regular board meeting. Speaking for myself, I was caught off guard by the motion and I wasn't as adequately prepared to consider or debate it as I would have been had I known it was coming, though I did attempt to say something. I also felt it was very unfair to put a newly elected chair in the position of having to deal with this matter when he had only been in the chair for an hour or so. I will not speak about the motion itself in accordance with Governance Bylaw 8.8. Should my motion to rescind be successful, however, I would like to say a few words about it later. In summary, I believe the process followed by the mover of the motion and by the board as a whole with respect to this motion contravened our governance bylaws with respect to new motions presented for board consideration by individual trustees. And for this reason, I respectfully request that the motion be rescinded. Failing to do so or turning a blind eye just this once not only sets a precedent which could lead to future surprises at the board table, but more importantly, it says that our governance bylaws don't count for anything. In addition, I contend that because trustees did not see the motion in a written format at the meeting, and because the motion was unexpected, trustees may not have been clear what they were voting on and were not adequately prepared to give it the attention we should have. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Cosmerly. Anybody to speak in opposition to this motion? Any further comments? Anybody else would like to speak either for or against the motion? Seeing no further discussion on the motion, in order for this motion to be passed and rescinded, we require a 2/3 vote in favor, so we will call the question. Trustee Cosmerly.
Sorry, I would request a recorded vote, please.
Thank you. We'll have a recorded vote.
Trustee Clement,
In favor.
Trustee Corbier-Addison,
In favor?
Trustee Dewar,
In favor.
Trustee Farrow,
In favor.
Trustee Gibson,
Opposed?
Trustee Hunda,
In favor.
Trustee Cosmerly,
In favor?
Trustee McCauley,
In favor.
Student Trustee Green.
In favor.
The motion is carried.
Thank you, Director. Moving on to Section F of our agenda, new business. I'm sorry, one mistake. I will back up because I believe Trustee Cosmerly had a point of order or a question.
Sorry, I just wanted to make a comment. I think the fact that so many people voted in favor of the motion originally, I think we do need a discussion about what documentation we should be receiving or not receiving, however we want to call it, as a report, a document, a presentation, or whatever. Because so many people voted in favor of the motion at the time, I think it shows that maybe there's a common piece here that people feel that they would like a little bit more information than what we get. I don't know. But I would suggest that we have a further discussion about what sort of documentation we as trustees would like to help us to do our job, maybe at a strategic planning committee meeting or in another venue, however the board wants to do it. But just have a conversation about what sort of information might help us better do our jobs. And that's just my thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Cosmerly. So because there's no motion on the floor in regards to this, we take your point under consideration. What I am prepared to do is at our next agenda setting meeting is to have the discussion with staff about this issue. I've heard what you've said, and I've heard many other trustees comments on this also, and we will come back with something that I think will hit the mark for things that we're looking for here. Okay. So what I really don't want to do is I don't want to belabor the topic tonight because we don't have a motion on the floor. Let's continue with the business that we have tonight, and we'll get back to you after we have some chance to think about it a little bit. Okay.
Thanks.
Point of order.
First of all, we have point of order. Go ahead, Trustee Gibson.
Thank you. Just regarding the motion that's now been rescinded, that can't be entertained now that it's been rescinded, so it can't go back to strategic planning.
Understood, Trustee Gibson. That's why I don't want to get into a discussion about this because I'm not sure how we should handle this at this point in time. Trustee McCauley.
Yes, just following up. I think Trustee Cosmerly hit the nail on the head, and I don't want to belabor it because we've dealt with it already, but a lot of it was lack of understanding as to what the implications of all of this were. Now, my concern, Chair, is if we set up a discussion with staff and whatever, how's that going to be communicated out to us so that we can have A, input, and B, be in a position to make a decision based on understanding of the process. And I know that the staff have, since I've been here now for a couple of meetings, that the staff have an incredibly busy job, and that motion would have just really brought them to their knees. So I think that there is some way that we can have a meeting, but I'm really on the side of the staff and administration on this one, and I just want to make sure that I have information going forward that helps me make a decision based on understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee McCauley. Trustee Dewar.
I'd just like to piggyback on what Trustee McCauley said, in that what I'd like to suggest is that the chair of the board consider bringing this topic, not the motion, the topic. I'm asking that the chair consider bringing this topic to a strategic planning committee meeting for discussion, not the
$59,000 for co-op education supports for students with disabilities and $35,000 for the developmental disabilities pilot, which has allowed us to launch an additional class for Project Search. The special education department was also successful in its application for the Removing Barriers for Students with Disabilities program, which allowed us 1 year's worth of funding for additional support and transition resources. $30,200 for experiential professional learning for our guidance teachers, our annual allocation for transportation and stability supports for children and youth in care, this year at $155,500, an additional qualification subsidy for teachers pursuing math qualifications as part of the Math Action Plan, and finally, $12,400 in mental health strategy supports for emerging needs, including the promotion of healthy decision-making and the prevention of cannabis use and vaping among students. These additional funds bring our originally reported total of just over $3.2 million to just over $3.6 million. Reviewing our sources of revenue, you'll see that the increase in Pupil Foundation and School Foundation grants reflects our increase in enrollment. Increases in special purpose grants, such as the special education and language allocation, are also due to additional enrollment in their respective programs. Our Indigenous education or allocation is lower due to the reallocation of Indigenous funding. However, we are able to use reserves of $298,000, which you'll see at the bottom, from a healthy balance we have of over $1 million. Reductions in the geographic circumstances allocations are a result of increased enrollment directly within those remote and rural supported schools. The increased enrollment has had similar effects on the declining enrollment adjustment, which is now 0. At the same time, our Safe Schools and mental health funding has increased along with enrollment, as well as our school board, administration and governance, and school operations and maintenance allocations. The qualifications and experience funding has decreased along with the average experience factor of our teaching staff. Newer staff will cause fluctuations on the qualification and experience grid and reduce our funding allocation. The increase under student transportation includes the adjustments for fuel costs, as well as funding from the ministry for the driver retention incentives, which are flowed through to the operators. Just like last week, the ministry announced additional funding that reflects the retention funds, as well as costs related to HST and an increase for school bus rider safety. Those amounts were not reflected in this revised budget based on the timing of that announcement. The school renewal allocation is currently showing a decrease of $77,000 due to an error within EFIS from the original budget, which has since been corrected. Under other revenue, we have seen an increase in our First Nations funding through the education service agreements with the addition of 9 elementary and 1 secondary First Nation students. The carry forward funds from rural and northern education funding are captured under the miscellaneous line item, and we are projecting a higher investment income based on current and trending interest rates compared to our original estimate. The increase in PFF funding, as we went over in detail, is also listed near the bottom. We are also utilizing existing balances within student success, outdoor education, student mental health, and other reserves under the targeted students and experiential learning funds of approximately $1.3 million. Our use of special education reserves has been decreased due to an increase in funding available in the current year. The school renewal funds represent the carryover costs associated with capital projects that were not completed during the 22-23 fiscal year. These funds are drawn from an existing reserve that was set up to reflect the carryover. The $330,000 increase to accumulated surplus represents our projected operating surplus for the year. However, we have commitments to several modular units that utilize this in-year balance, as well as part of our accumulated balance. I will detail this further when we discuss our reserves. As we look at our expenses, in general, you will note that we have increases across the board, representing an increase in FTE as we support the instructional requirements of our additional enrollment. This is reflected in the increase for instruction, school management, and student support services. Please note that the decrease in teaching support services is due to the cost of consultants that this year are covered by funds provided within the de-streaming PPF and since adjusted from the original budget projection. One other factor to consider when reviewing our staff-related costs is the impact of the additional CPP requirements of approximately $144,000 this year. Within the pupil accommodation cost, showing an increase of 8.4%, are the school renewal carryover costs for capital projects that I mentioned previously. The increase in transportation is a result of increases in our new busing contracts, additional ridership due to our increased enrollment, cost for transportation requirements for both special needs and our summer school program, as well as the flow-through cost of the driver retention share. Lastly, you will see the increase in the priority and partnership funds, which we have already outlined. Finally, as we look at the board's balances for reserves, I will highlight just a few things. As mentioned previously, you will see in the in-year operating surplus of $330,000 adding to our accumulated balance. Although not visible, the board is replenishing the funds borrowed from previous year's surplus balance that are offset by upcoming proceeds of disposition as those funds are received. This includes the sale of Cyril Varney, which was completed in September of 2023, and the anticipated transactions with the Ernie Checkers and Carl Nesbitt properties prior to the end of this fiscal year. There are also funds drawn from surplus that are committed to the purchase of modular units to supplement the temporary accommodation funding. This includes costs for completion of the new modular unit at Princess Anne, the 2 new units that have been recently installed at McLeod Public School, and a provision for 1 additional modular unit during the summer to address some of our accommodation pressures. In addition to the $330,000 in-year surplus, we anticipate a further amount of approximately $400,000 to complete the work on these units. And that will conclude our presentation of the 23-24 revised estimates. Again, I am happy to address any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Superintendent Guilbeault. Any questions from trustees on the presentation? Trustee Cosmerly, go ahead.
Just one question about the CPP, the additional CPP. This is a big bugaboo at OPSPA, the fact that there has been no money coming forward from the province. Has there been any word at all from the province that they're going to address these additional CPP costs? I noticed you said there's about $144,000 of a deficit that it causes for us.
At this point, no, we've heard the same thing at COSBO that you've heard, that we have to absorb it under the existing GSN funding.
That's awful. I think OPSPA is going to continue to press the government to fund this because it's stupid that they haven't. Thank you.
Any further questions for the Superintendent? Seeing none, thank you, Adam, for your presentation. Oh, wait a minute. Trustee Hunda, do you have a question?
Just really quickly, through you, Chair Farrell, I just want to thank Adam and the team for this presentation and having sat here for so long when we were going through it, times of declining enrollment and having to make such painful decisions. I have to tell you, it's very exciting when we have gains in our enrollment and particularly to that amount that is unexpected, and it does bring more funding and better news and better things that we can offer. But I do realize this is a lot of work, and I thank you for putting it into terms that we can understand. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Trustee Hunda. Nothing further. Once again, thank you, Superintendent Guilbeault, for your hard work, you and your team. We very much appreciate those revised numbers. Now, moving on in our agenda, we're at F2 now, and it's the Ontario Students Trustees Association Education Action Conference. We do have a motion, but before we read the motion, I'm wondering if Trustee Green has any comments.
I'm in favor of this motion personally. I think OSTA is a incredible conference that Trustee Jacko-Sywik and I get to attend. We get to learn so much about public education with regards to all of Ontario rather than specifically just our board, and we're able to take the things that we learn from OSTA and different student trustees, and we're able to bring those back to our board to develop our student senate or our board for the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Green. Any further comments? Seeing none, so we have a motion, and the motion is that the board approve the attendance of Student Trustee Green and Student Trustee Jacko-Sywik at the Ontario Student Trustees Association Educational Action Conference in Ottawa on February 8th through February 11th, 2024. And would you like to move that, Trustee Green? He's not, I'm sorry, my mistake. I wanted to get you to move it. So we need to, we've got it moved by Trustee Doer, and we have it seconded by Trustee Hunda. Any further questions on the motion? We will go to the vote.
Trustee Clement? Oh, sorry. Trustee Corbier-Addison?
In favor.
Trustee Doer?
In favor.
Trustee Farrell?
In favor.
Trustee Gibson?
In favor.
Trustee Hunda?
In favor.
Trustee Cosmerly?
In favor.
Trustee McCauley?
In favor.
Student Trustee Green?
In favor.
Motion is carried.
Thank you, great, and I hope that you have a great time and you learn lots in Ottawa. Section F3, Notice of Absence, we have Trustee Linda Dabowski, who is granted a leave of absence for tonight's meeting. Section F4, we'll move on to Director's Remarks. Director Bourget.
Thank you, Chair Farrow. My comments will be brief, but I would like to wish everyone a happy new year and state that in 2024, we are very excited to move forward with our talented staff, our dedicated administrators, our committed executive council, and all of our students as we approach the 100th day of school shortly and get ready for second semester in secondary schools. As you know, we've restructured our executive council's work each week to make sure we visit schools each Wednesday and Thursday. Tonight you saw a sample of some of that incredible work, and it spans many other areas, but we do see this incredible work happening on each and every week, and we're very grateful for this work that occurs on behalf of our students by all of our staff. We are working very diligently to support staff in our collective efforts to grow in student achievement, as you know, in literacy and numeracy, and I'd like to express my sincere thanks to the Board of Trustees for your continued support and advocacy for our students and our staff. As you know, we remain very focused on the priorities that you've established in strategic directions, which provides a very purposeful path forward through your leadership. And I want to thank everyone also for being kind, caring, and patient, as this goes a very long way in supporting each other. It is a simple yet very powerful way to make a difference each and every day. To close, I'd just like to review recent appointments with you, and these are all due to some retirements as of December 31st. So in December, Julie Balin was appointed as acting vice principal at Little Current Public School. You'll also recall that Robin Best has taken on the principal's role at Charles C. McLean Public School. We're also pleased to welcome Kristen Bichette as principal at LaSalle Elementary School. And you saw tonight, Nicole Nicholas-Bear is now the principal of Indigenous Education on behalf of the board. That will conclude my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. I saw a hand go up. Trustee Gibson, did you have a question?
It was just a point of order regarding you announcing granting a leave of absence. I believe we have to vote on that. The chair can't just announce it. Or
I'm sorry, Trustee Gibson. I misspoke at that point in time.
Okay,
I realized that at the time. So it was a point of information that Trustee Dubosky wasn't here tonight. I realized after I said that, and thank you very much for pointing that out, but it was an error on my part.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for our director on his report? Okay, moving on to section F, number 5, OPSPA Director. Trustee Cosmerly, do you have a report for us?
I do. As a member of the OPSPA Policy Development Committee, I attended a Ministry of Education consultation on January the 18th regarding Trustee Code of Conduct, specifically on the establishment of a roster of integrity commissioners, their qualifications, role, and fees, the process for notice and referral of a Trustee Code of Conduct complaint to an integrity commissioner, the investigation process, the appeal process, and the use of trustee honoraria as a penalty. We were also asked for feedback on Director of Education qualifications and about Trustee and Director of Education professional development. OPSPA staff took copious notes during the consultation, and the ministry will be posting a survey on Trustee Code of Conduct on the regulation registry sometime shortly so that anyone who is interested can provide their feedback. Jennifer McIntyre from OPSPA will let us know when the survey is posted. I urge you to complete the survey when it's available. All trustees on the call had concerns about the roles of the Integrity Commissioner and of the Director of Education in the proposed Code of Conduct process. Trustees stated loud and clear that the Integrity Commissioner's role is to investigate and the board's role is to make Trustee Code of Conduct decisions. The Director of Education should not have any role in Trustee Code of Conduct. The proposal from the province gives the Director a role. The Director of Education, okay, I said that. The ministry also clearly heard that boards cannot and will not pay any costs associated with integrity commissioners. Of special concern is if there is appeal, the appeal is to a tribunal of 3 integrity commissioners. So this can get quite expensive. If the ministry wants us to use integrity commissioners, what OPSPA members on the call said, that the ministry then should be fully funding them. Trustees also did not support using honoraria as a penalty, but suggested other actions be considered instead, such as removal from duties coupled with professional development. There is a reminder that the Public Education Symposium is being held in Toronto this Thursday and Friday, and I think we have a couple of trustees that will be attending. And finally, the province is continuing its pre-budget consultations. A public hearing is scheduled in Sudbury on January 30th. All public hearings are live streamed and are available on the Ontario Legislative Assembly website, which is olg.org. Written submissions will be accepted until January 31st. And that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Cosmerly. Any questions?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, we'll go to Trustee Gibson first, and then I've got you, Trustee McCauley.
Thank you, Trustee Cosme. I just wanted to clarify. Did you say that penalties that would be considered would be professional development? That's considered a penalty?
No, it would be
what other actions be considered instead, such as removal from duties coupled with professional development. So you're saying that removal from duties is the penalty, and you're just coupling it with professional development. Is that right?
Yes. So what they're saying is you wouldn't just remove someone from different committees or from the board table. There should be something positive added to it, and that positive would be professional development.
Almost like a form of re-education. I understand. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
And Trustee McCauley.
Yes, thank you, Trustee Cosmerly. I always look forward to hearing your reports because I read with interest and sometimes with a little bit of trepidation the reports that come out from our board with the information from the media that I believe it's COTS puts out. I don't know if I'm saying it right or whatever, but in any event,
TJ.
My big concern around any of these things is the fact that there's parts of it that seem to want to limit the role of trustees. And I'm thinking of the media thing that's caught a lot of attention around as to who's going to dictate, for instance, what I say to the media or when I say it, or if I'm asked a question. And I know we look at our code of conduct, and I come from a background that's very sensitive around the media, but at the same time, there is a need to, not the media part so much, but ensure that trustees are not handcuffed any more than I believe we are, because of the ministry. And I think we had some discussions about this before. I do not like the way oftentimes we are dictated to by the ministry, and so I'm sensitive to that, and I trust that you will make sure that those kind of things are closely scrutinized, and if they're not, that we get to know about it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Trustee McCauley. Go ahead, Trustee Cosmerly. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I just said your point is taken.
Trustee Hunda.
I'm taking a deep breath. Thank you very much, Chair Farrow. To you, I guess, to Trustee Cosmerly. First of all, thank you for all the work that you do on behalf of us at the OPSPA table. I'm very happy that you're reporting to us that there is, that OPSPA is concerned, certainly about the funding. Personally, as I said, I'm taking a deep breath and counting to 10. First of all, I wish that as adults and grown people, that there would be no need for such a committee, an integrity, a committee for trustees that we would all know, basics on how to behave. Unfortunately, as we know and as we read from other boards as well, that isn't the case. What concerns me is money that we, as we just saw, as boards are struggling to get the money together to do good things for kids, which is why I hope we're all here at this table. I'm sure we're all here at this table for that. But all across the province, that this government is so ridiculously ready to spend money on more and more, in my opinion, things that do not come down and touch kids. They don't touch their hearts. They don't touch their minds. And it just, every time I hear a new group of outside, inexperienced people that are going to somehow punish or I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, but they're there to penalize trustees for the job that they do, comes at a really, really high. And I think you said there was 3, Judy, was there not? 3 integrity. Think of the money and think of what good could be done for kids. And, you know, it's just such a sad world that this is where we're putting our priorities. But that's just one woman's opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hunda. We have Trustee Corbier-Addison now. Go ahead, Lisa.
I just wanted to thank Trustee Alex McCauley for his words, and I echo those words with Trustee McCauley, ensuring that we respect the Charter of Rights and Freedoms is as important as setting those rules in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Corbier-Addison. Any further comments? And Trustee Green, go ahead.
I just had a question for you, Trustee Cosmerly. Are the student trustees also expected to fill out the survey that you previously talked about?
The survey will be posted on a government website. It's called the Registration Regulation Registry. Anyone can fill it out. So the more the government hears from the public, the more weight there is. They heard from one group, a policy group at OPSPA. There were 33 of us on the call, but the more people that they hear from, especially people who are directly implicated by trustee code of conduct, I think the better.
Thank you.
Perfect. Any further comments, questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to our next section, which is student trustees. So Trustee Green, go ahead.
Hello. I'm very excited to share with you all here today that the High School 101 slideshow is in their final stages of being completed. I can now express to you here today how proud I am of each and every single one of our senators, and I can't wait to show the final product with that to you all. We also have a couple of senators who have taken an interest in being this next student trustees. Over the past month, they've been shadowing Trustee Jacko Sywink and me, and to have a more comprehensive of the idea of the role of a student trustee before elections take place and a final decision has been made. With regards to Osta ACO, both student trustee Jacko Sywink and I have been working in our working groups preparing what we are going to be talking about at the conference in February. Finally, as per our Stand Up Speak Out conference, things are moving very quickly. This year's theme will be Believing in Yourself, which we think is a great contrast to the leadership-centered conferences we've held in the past. This theme was chosen because we understand that student mental health is at an all-time low, and sometimes we need a reminder to believe in ourselves. Our breakout rooms haven't been selected yet, but some possibilities that we are looking at are believing in your culture, confidence in yourself, confidence in growth or your future, and confidence in a team. Trustee Jacko Sywink and I would love any input or suggestions about the conference and are happy to answer any questions that you have at this time. Thank you.
Any questions for Student Trustee Green? Seeing none, thank you very much for your great work, Trustee Green. Really appreciate it. Section F6, Trustees' Remarks. Seeing no trustee remarks, wow. next section is chairperson's remarks, so I have a few remarks I'd like to make. First of all, as this is our first regular meeting for 2024, I would like to wish all trustees and staff, students, and families a very healthy and happy new year. I also want to wish trustees a safe travel and a wonderful public education symposium in Toronto that is starting tomorrow evening and going on through Saturday. This is really a great chance to network with other trustees around the province. I also had the opportunity to visit Lansdowne Public School on January 11th and reconnect with Principal Harvey and Vice Principal Parnell Caruso. You know, Lansdowne remains a unique, special, and vibrant school. The feeling when you walk through that door is absolutely great. The staff are so engaged, and Lansdowne is definitely a student-centered school. It was an absolute fantastic visit. I'd also like to extend my sincere thanks to all parents and guardians and children who attended our kindergarten information nights last week. If you were unavailable to attend, there is still time to register. Please contact your area Rainbow School today. Now, as mentioned before, secondary school information nights continue in the coming weeks. On Thursday, February 15th, we have Espanola High School at 6 p.m. and also Manitoulin Secondary School at 6:30 p.m. and LaSalle Secondary School on Thursday, February 22nd at 6:30 p.m. For the information nights that have already taken place, there is still time for you to register. And the next Parent Involvement Committee meeting will take place on Tuesday, January 30th at 7 p.m. at the Center for Education. A presentation on social media and cybersecurity will take place, which is a very important topic and a timely topic for families. And the Environmental Education Committee invites Rainbow Schools to turn down the heat and wear a sweater for National Sweater Day on Thursday, February the 1st. This initiative is part of the committee's ongoing effort to increase awareness about climate change and to encourage sustainable practices. And parents and guardians of students with special needs in the Rainbow District School Board are invited to provide input to the 2024-2025 Special Education Plan. The deadline to complete the survey is Friday, March the 1st, and the survey link is currently available on our board's website. And a reminder that secondary exams are set to take place between Friday, January 26th and Thursday, February 1st. Also, there'll be a professional activity day that will take place on Friday, February 2nd, and there'll be no school for students during that day. As well, next month we have Family Day on Monday, February 19th, and there will be no school for students or staff. And that concludes my remarks for tonight. Section G of our agenda has information and proposals. Section G1, reports from officials and staff. So we have Accessibility Committee meetings, minutes from December 8th, PEC Committee meetings from April 11th, 2023 and May 9th. We have Audit Committee meetings from September 25th, and the Special Education Advisory Committee meetings from October 4th, as well as the PIC Committee meetings from October 17th, as well as the Special Education Advisory Committee from December the 6th. And those are all official meeting minutes, and they're attached to your agenda package. G2, we have tenders and requests, one from Redwood Acres Public School. Just a quick question to Superintendent Guilbeault. What is the scope and what is the purpose of that tender for Redwood?
That tender was for work that we actually had on our list last year. We weren't able to get the tender out in time to get it done last summer, but it's to complete the expansion of the bus lay-by area and the parking lot. And at the same time, we're fixing the drainage issue that occurs towards the exit of the parking lot where there's kind of some pooling that happens. And so that work will begin in the spring.
Thank you, Superintendent Guilbeault. Appreciate that. Future meetings, we have the PIC meeting coming up on January 30th at 7 p.m. Student Senate will meet February 5th at 5:30. Our Strategic Planning Committee, February 6th at 5 p.m. Special Education Advisory Committee will be February 7th at 12 p.m. Our First Nations Advisory Committee is February 15th at 10 a.m. And our Equity and Inclusion Committee is scheduled for February 15th at 10 a.m. Oh, sorry, at 4 p.m., my mistake. And our next board meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, February 20th at 5 p.m. That's it. And now I'd like to entertain a motion for adjournment. Moved by Trustee McCauley, seconded by Trustee Dewar, that we are now adjourned.